There we go.
Welcome everybody to our third panel discussion. We're really excited to have this discussion today with our great panelists. They have expertise and knowledge and lots of insight to share with you all today at our Diversity Festival. And today's topic is democracy. So I'm going to go over to my co-host, Neil. He is musical director here at Moksha Canada. He's also co-founder of Chorus Music Academy. And many of you may not know at home that he has a master's in ethnomusicology. So I'm going to let you take it away, Neil, and you could explain to our viewers at home just what that is.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for that introduction, Nadia. And yes, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Neil Danny. I'm a musician, producer, and basically love music. More importantly, I studied ethnomusicology, which I think is really applicable in the context of diversity, because what ethnomusicology is, simply put, is the study of the relationship between music and culture. And you learn about how music impacts culture and culture impacts music and all these other factors in society as well. And by doing that, I was really able to open my mind to what is in the world and broaden my horizons and my understanding. And I think giving me a wider appreciation overall of what music is, what music can be, and how rich musical culture is. And in turn, by learning that, you really widen your appreciation of different cultures around the world in general, and just soak up all the richness that they all have to offer. So I think it was a really great way of learning more about other cultures, but also opening my mind to other cultures and just appreciating them that much more.
So before we begin, and you introduce all of our panelists, I just want everybody to know at home that you can be putting in some questions in the comments, so our panelists can answer those as well. And we're going to keep an eye on that chat. And if you want to show some support to our panelists, there are some clapping emojis and thumbs up, and feel free to share and add on to what our panelists are saying as well.
There, I see a thumbs up now. Awesome. Great. Well, we have a number of amazing panelists here today, and we really appreciate all of them taking the time out to be here. The way that this panel is going to work is we're going to go to each panelist one by one and speak with them and gain some insights. Following that, we'll have a few questions from the community. And after we speak with all the panelists, we'll open up questions to all of our panelists. So let's go ahead. With my great pleasure, I'd like to introduce our first panelist for the day. And she was actually here a few weeks ago for our first Diversity Festival discussion. She gave us some great insight, shared amazing stories, and gave us a lot of knowledge about human rights. So I would love to welcome back to the panel discussion, Nicole Crellin. Nicole is a teacher and a human rights advocate. She's the director of Youth for Human Rights Toronto as well. And for over 40 years, she's been active in promoting human rights as well as exposing human rights abuses. Ms. Crellin has reached thousands through her promotional and educational activities to inform others about their human rights, including those under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which have been adopted by 194 countries around the world. Nicole Crellin, thank you so much for being here with us again. We really appreciate you taking the time, and I look forward to our discussion.
Yes. So just before we start, I would like to really thank Moksha Canada Foundation, the founder, Sunil Channon, to give us this opportunity. And here he is right there. And to give us the opportunity to meet incredible people who have lots of experience and lots of things to share. So we are learning and we are expanding our knowledge in this area of human rights. So since the topic is about democracy, and you know that I'm a teacher.
Oh, I know where this is going. I love it.
Yes, you know that I'm going to be asking everyone what democracy is. No, I'm not going to put anybody on the spot. So it comes from two Greek words. and one is demos, D-E-M-O-S, and that means whole citizen, like a full citizen living within a city or a state. And the second word is kratia, K-R-A-T-I-A, and it means power or rule. So basically—
Sorry to interrupt. Being a Greek, the second word is
I know,
kratos,
correct me.
K-R-A-T-O-S, which means country or state.
Which one? Kratia?
Demos is people.
Yes.
Kratos, not Croatia, Kratos means city or state or country.
Well,
Sorry
I
for
looked
that.
it up in the Oxford Dictionary, and that's what it gave me. So I don't know. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, that's what it is. So it's a system of government by the whole population through elected representatives. So that is the definition of democracy. And I'm sure there's other, thank you, Jim, for adding that little information on it. And since we are talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion and multiculturalism, let's make sure we understand what we're talking about. So diversity is like when you include or involve people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds. And inclusion is the practice or the policy of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. And we've heard a lot about the word multiculturalism, and of course that means the support for the presence of several distinct cultural or ethnic groups within a society. Now we're talking about also how it relates as well to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Now again, people say the Charter, but a lot of them would not be able to define that word. So let's define it together. It is an official document and it's approved by the legislature and it grants different rights to the citizens. So that's what a charter is. So we have the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And of course we know that it was put together in 1982 and we have our own constitution. And what it does, it gives the protection of every Canadian for the right to be treated equally under the law. And of course, Jim, if you have anything to add, please let me know because I am not in the area of government. So if there's, okay. All right. And I wanted to say that if we're talking about democracy and previously when we were chatting before we started.
Sorry, let me, I don't mean to interrupt, but you said okay. If I have anything to add. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms has been translated to over 40 languages officially by the Government of Canada, and it was translated and was made available to different ethnicities. So I just add that. So if not any of you want to get a copy of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in your language, I would suggest you call your member of parliament. There could be some still hanging around because they stopped the printing of them.
Okay. Well, in 1983, I spent about 2 full months going around different cities in Ontario, distributing the copies of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And it was given to us by the Mayor Crombie at the time, David Crombie. And so we were able also to get it into different languages. And we had the Canadian Charter, let's say in Polish. So we would go to the Polish community and we would do a special presentation for their community so they could have that hanging in their area for anybody to refer to or to read. So that's one thing that's important to know our Constitution. Now, one of the things that is very important is if you don't vote, then you're not exercising your right to democracy. And that is a right that we should really put into effect because a lot of people do not vote. The percentage of voting is unfortunately shocking and hard to believe that in Canada, people do not inform themselves of the candidate, ask questions and all this. So voting is a very close part of democracy. So we have to, if we want to have democratic rule in our country, we need to be able to be alert and to be responsible as citizens. And because we have a responsibility to uphold our human rights. Now, of course, I am the Youth for Human Rights Toronto director, but for the adults section, it is called United for Human Rights. So under the United for Human Rights, what we do is we make the Universal Declaration of Human Rights very well known and promoted. And this is a document that was put together in 1948 after the World War II, after so many atrocities. So that's also a way to not only know about your Constitution, which is great, but to know about your universal human rights. And this is, if you're a human being, these are your rights. And Canada is a signatory to this document. So that is also very important to be educated about that. And we do have a petition as well that we're getting a lot of signatures, and we want the provincial government to ensure that human rights education is occurring in schools so that everyone should know these 30 human rights. A lot of people don't know about it. They've heard about it, but some can only name about 3, but there are 30 of them. So one should know about those. And again, it is our duty, you know, if we were going to be living in a democratic society, to look, observe, learn, and also put into practice, apply, do something. We cannot just always like criticize how things are wrong and how things are not the way they should be. We also have to find out what can we do, because one elected representative is not God Almighty, doesn't know everything, or she doesn't know everything. So what we have to do is the citizens have to take action as well and do their research and also present them. And if there are laws that are not very, very open for representing human rights, well, let's take the democratic steps and change the law. So we have responsibility as citizens. And so that was my short presentation.
Wow, great. Thank you so much for that, Nicole. Really appreciate all the insight and everything that you've discussed with us today, because you're absolutely right. Human rights are something that are so fundamental, but a lot of us, first of all, probably take them for granted because of the kind of society that we live in. And second of all, a lot of us may not even be aware of all of these rights, you know, aside from a handful. So that is definitely really important. And I know when we spoke last, you had mentioned that they're available and we can get free copies of them. Where would we be able to get access to these copies of the human rights?
One would go on the website www.youthforhumanrights.org or humanrights.com. Okay. One of those 2 websites.
Awesome. Youthforhumanrights.org or humanrights.com. So anyone watching, if you're interested in learning more about these fundamental human rights, which I strongly encourage, please do go visit those places and you can become more aware of these really important rights. We also have another question, Nicole, from our community. And this is, how can we bring awareness about voting in Canada during election season?
Well, again, because I do a lot of work with United for Human Rights and Youth for Human Rights, so I have an angle on it, which is one should know our 30 basic human rights. And if you look at number 29, it is called responsibility. So that means we have a responsibility, not only just for ourselves, but for others. So let's say you vote, but others around you are not. Do something about that. I know that I have had to do that in my own family sometimes, wow. You know, because they haven't done the research, so they depend on me. So I make sure that it happens. So it can extend to other people in the society. And, you know, you ask, and even if people criticize, let's say they're criticizing something about what is happening in society, you can say, well, I have a short question. Did you vote in the last election?
And then it's like, it's, you know, now there's less justification, I guess, to complain, because if you're not even going to do your part to move that forward, or at least try to move that forward with your individual voice, then what's the use of complaining? Because you're pretty much wasting your breath, right?
Well, you can make a point, and hopefully the next time they will, or if they haven't voted, maybe they can start getting more involved in the community and issues that are of interest to them, to get involved and do something. Because if you look around, we know that things are not the way they should be. They can be improved tremendously.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Well,
I
thank
would
you
love,
so much.
I was
Sorry,
just
go
going to
ahead.
say that I would love to add to what Nicole said, because unfortunately, I am guilty of not always voting. And just like, I know
Look at
I
you.
probably shouldn't have said this openly, but you know why? And I think it's important to share this, because I think I know a lot of people that have the similar thought of mine, that they don't feel like they've been educated about politics. So they feel like, or we're going to ask, you know, in my case, my parents, rely on them, or they're going to say, well, I don't know, so I shouldn't put in my vote, because my vote shouldn't be valued because there are people who know. And I was going to say that I feel like if you know of a way that we could bring education maybe to the school system, or find ways to inform the community more about this, so that we could take a bigger interest in it and want to be a part of it. Sorry for those of, if I'm offending anybody with politics. That's the artist in me.
And thank you for being so honest to say that. And also, sometimes you ask people, who is your city councillor? Who is your provincial representative? Who is your federal member of parliament? And they will not be able to tell you. So we should at least know who it is and a little bit about it. And so it's all encouraging and having, creative ways, interesting ways of involving people. And that's what's missing.
I feel the same. I do feel like it is missing, definitely. But
you know what?
Yeah.
So we have some great points from our community as well here. Lynn, who was part of our previous discussion as well, said the words exactly: democratic literacy, right? Having that knowledge, having that awareness of who is running, what are they delivering, and knowing exactly what you're getting into, I think is really important. And I can see why that would be a deterrent for some people when it comes to voting, especially the younger generation, or even, people my age saying, look, I don't even know how this stuff works, so why am I going to go and potentially skew the results when my vote doesn't matter because I don't know any better? But I think that's something that we have to change as well. I mean, I know for myself, I always go and vote. And if I don't know something about what's happening, I'll try to talk to people. And this is usually my family. I'll say, hey, what do you guys think about this? And what are your thoughts? And so that way, even if I don't know as much as I'd like to, every person that votes is going to make a difference in some way or the other. And I know that a lot of times people may feel, well, look, I don't think I should vote because I don't know what I'm voting for. But I think that's the issue right there, right? Is really take responsibility to learn about these things, because we're so privileged to be living in a society like this where we can vote. And it's not a difficult process. It's not something that we've had to fight for. So we do end up taking it a little bit for granted. Whereas other nations, they're just starting to vote. And sometimes these votes are so rigged and skewed, and it's so much more difficult to get where we are now. So I think if we appreciate that and realize that this is our responsibility and we're so blessed to be in this kind of a position, hopefully that'll raise some more awareness, or even just help people actually go and take on that responsibility. We have a great question here, Nicole, from Anu. And her question is, what role do bodies like Elections Canada play in raising awareness on the importance of voting?
I think they do some good job. I think this should be addressed to Jim. Go for it, Jim.
Well, look, during an election, there is a number of candidates. If you're federally, there is the three parties, four actually, and in some places there's five, like in Quebec, five main parties in Quebec, and the rest of Canada, four main parties, but there's also splinter parties. So every candidate tries to get their message out either through phone calls, distribution of literature, putting up signs, door knocking. Elections Canada, this is federally, it puts out ads. They do social media. They do Facebook ads. They do Twitter. They do Instagram, and they also send out flyers, as well as sometimes go and enumerate people. So Elections Canada plays an important role. But usually during an election, if somebody's not aware that there's an election happening, well, I got to question that individual. I mean, there's so many signs, so many lists, so many phone calls, just boggles the brain. So it's individuals' rights to go and vote, but it's also a duty to go and vote. In other countries, you must be voting, and if you don't vote, you lose certain rights. You could be fined. You're going to have to show your identity card that shows you voted. In Canada, we'll let that a little bit loose. In the United States, the turnout of elections is so low, it's unbelievable, because there is so much negativity in elections. In Canada, it isn't. Now, when you take that into the province, this is the greatest scheme of things. And you come to the province, there's Elections Ontario. Elections Ontario, the same thing. Four political parties, along other splinter parties, and every candidate is at your door. They're door knocking, they're phone calling, voice drops, which is an automatic robot dial, flyers. It goes on. So again, the same thing. Municipally, the attendance in municipal elections is much lower. People seem to lose interest when it comes to municipal elections. Again, you got the candidates, but in some elections, you might have about 30 or 40 candidates running in a municipal election. There's no such thing as political parties in Ontario. There's political parties in Quebec, there's political parties in Vancouver. But those people that run the elections, that do their best in order to allow you to know that there's an election, social media, advertising in the radio, advertising on TV, as well as flyers at your house. But most of it is driven by the candidates themselves when they door knock at your house and at your door, and they tell you, hey, go out and vote. So it's not lack of knowing that there's an election. It's not lack of information coming at your door. Sometimes it's apathy, and sometimes it's just, I don't care. I really don't care.
You know what?
Federal elections in Canada, you have anywhere between 65 to 70% turnout, which is pretty good. Provincial, you got anywhere between 55 to 65. Municipal, unless it's a very heated race, you can get up to 45%. If it's a heated race, if not, it's 35%.
Wow. I had no idea it was that low for municipal.
When was the last time you voted municipally?
I always do.
Who was the candidate you voted for?
Who's the candidate that I voted for?
There you go. You see, that's the question that anybody asks you. Because I don't dispute that you voted, but you went into a booth, tic-tac-toe, or there's a name there that you knew just before you went in. Federally, who is your member of parliament?
Who is my member of parliament?
Yeah, or anybody, for that fact. Anybody. Who's your member of parliament?
I think my member of parliament is Francesco Sorbara.
So you're up in Vaughan.
Yeah.
You see, I'm sorry for putting you on the spot.
No, please.
But what happens is that you vote in an election, then you say, and the name slips away provincially. Who's your provincial member of parliament?
Mike Shorten.
Come on now, come on. Come on, you see? That's what I mean. Yeah. Sorry, folks, no disrespect, but
no, this is great.
Unless you're politically active, you tend to forget. Mm-hmm. And the election comes around and you say, okay, I'm going to go and vote. I'm going to exercise my democratic rights. You go into the voting booth and you say, who do I vote for? Okay, if it's federally and provincially, it's usually party, you vote along party lines. Federally, provincially, the candidate, they can affect anywhere between anything less than 15%. So the candidate sometimes influences about 5, maybe 10%. Unless he or she is one damn good individual, then they can go up to 15, maybe 20%. If not, you will vote along with what you see every night in the news. Trudeau this, Charest this, the Ford this. Anybody know the leader of the Liberal Party? What's his name?
Like,
There you go. Del Duca. Now, you
oh,
that
yeah,
lives in
Stephen
Vaughan,
Del
you should
Duca.
know
Yes,
Stephen
yes.
Del Duca.
Stephen Del Duca, I know.
You should
Stephen,
know him.
I
But
do,
you
I
see,
do.
you don't see him every night on TV. So television plays an important role here, folks. I mean, during the election, we all become politically aware. We all become politically active. We think so. We go out and vote, and that's it. But hardly do you go out and get candidates. Hardly do you go out and engage candidates. And for those of you that want to have the ear of a political individual, I would suggest to you that to make change, you need to have political influence. And what do I mean by political influence? You got to be able to get the ear of the politician, him or her. And you can do that through holding rallies outside their office, sending emails and phones and letters, or you can go and volunteer on their campaign and get close to them, and something happens that's very important to you. You pick up the phone and you call and say, hey, this is, can we talk about this? So political influence pedals along a lot of ways. You can do it by getting involved and knowing the candidate, and once they win and become the member of parliament, the MPP or the councillor, you were able to pick up the phone and call them. Or you can be on the outside and you can have rallies and you can have, those again a democratic process. I mean, you're protesting on something. But usually at that time, unless you got massive rallies as what's happening in the United States right now after George Floyd, things slowly change.
Wow.
So, democracy is it comes from two words, and it's actually city-state, and this was done back in 400 BC when Athens, the first democracy was done in Athens, where citizens of the state or state citizens got together underneath a big rock, and they voiced their concerns and they elected, and later on in Rome you had the Senate, and then the Senate was done away. Well, it was still there, but then you had the emperors and dictators and everything else. But democracy was not really entrenched until we signed the Magna Carta, where all the feudal lords in England got uptight, and then the way they beheaded the king with Cromwell in 1549, whatever else. But democracy certainly has evolved in the last 200, 300 years. Britain, the colonies, the United States, and other countries. And you've got different kinds of democracies. In Canada, the minister, the member of parliament are in the House, they're accountable, they get to ask questions. In the United States, where you have the presidential system, the cabinet is not responsible. They're not in the legislature. They're not they're not in Congress. They're not in the Senate. The only thing that the Senate and the Congress control is the money bills. Somebody puts forward a budget and you vote on the money bills, and that's where you get control. In Canada, you've got party lines, and the party that elects the more members of parliaments or the more representatives, that leader gets to be a prime minister or premier. But however, the opposition holds them accountable in the House on a daily basis and question periods. So there's a little different in the way that things are done. And then you've got other countries that pretend to have states and everything else, but everything is run by the leader of the country. I mean, look at Venezuela, for example, prime example, where you got Chavez, and after that you have Maduro, that destroyed the country, completely destroyed the country. Oh yeah, they got parliament, they got elections and everything else. But look, you want to make changes, you want to get involved, you want to say, oh, I'm a democratic thing, by all means, let's make sure, number one, that we know who we're voting for. Number two, if we agree with her or his positions. Number three, if we agree with the positions of their party. Number four, meet them, see what they're made of.
That's amazing. That's a very good point, and thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. And on a personal level too, because here I was thinking, I vote, I do my part, I just got schooled on democracy.
Neil, I mean, it was not trying. I mean, sorry.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And one of the things that I did, I was a member of parliament for 26 years, and I'm a city councillor for the last 6, and going through a little bit of, let's say, difficult waters, but we'll get to the end of it. One of the things that I used to do as a member of parliament, I used to go in the classroom and we used to play speaker, where I divide the kids into two groups, I would be the speaker, and they would ask questions of each other. And if you ever watch Parliament, and if you ever watch the drama that goes up there, I mean, how many of you remember the time where the Liberals were under Paul Martin. They won by one vote. 2004 May, they won by one vote, and we stayed in government. And then later on, we lost. So things get played out. There's personal interests, there's party interests, and we move forward. But you got to get involved, and you got to get active, and you got to at least find out who your candidate is. Speak to them when they come to the door. That's the least thing that you can do, and know the names. Because if you don't know the names, at the end of the day, you get asked that question, and you say, "Huh."
Yeah. No. Now, next time I get asked that question, I'm going to make sure I know exactly.
Neil, I'm going to ask Sunil to bring him back on the panel. I'll ask him that question next time around.
All right, I'm going to be ready. I have some homework to do. I got two names though now. You know what? I know Francesco Sorbara. He's an amazing person. I think he's great, and so that's an easy one for me. But now looking back at it, even I'm thinking to myself, how did Stephen Del Duca slip my mind like that? Because I do see.
But you don't see Stephen Del Duca on TV every day. Every day right now during pandemic, you see Premier Ford, and he's got, and you see you see the Prime Minister. That's true. You don't see Sheree. Sorry, not Sheree. You don't see Scheer speaking. McGuinty certainly. I mean, not McGuinty. Peter MacKay certainly. So the press will only go to the leaders of the political parties for answers and questions. And the members of parliament, or the MPPs, the only thing that they have is they work with their constituencies. And if you're a good constituency person, you get reelected. You get returned. But a day in politics is like a lifetime.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for all that insight.
Thanks,
already.
Neil. I mean, I'm not sure if I answered the questions that you have put in front of me. Did I?
No, you know what? You answered that and more, and we do have more questions for you. But I just want to say thank you so much to Nicole Crellin, as well as Mr. Jim Karygiannis for all their.
For some reason or other, I think, Nicole, you and I have run into each other somewhere.
Yes, we do. We run into each other in many different events well, not after the
COVID.
But before, oh yeah,
okay.
maybe like 6, 7, 8 times.
Now I remember. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry, you look familiar, and I looked up your website and I said, I know that picture.
Oh, good.
Sorry, Neil. I'll stop here.
No, please. That was amazing. You know what? We actually are going to ask you a few more questions, but before we do, I just wanted to properly give you an introduction. And so, ladies and gentlemen watching, we have heard some amazing things from him already, but I would like to welcome back for some more questions, Mr. Jim Karygiannis. Mr. Karygiannis is the former Member of Parliament for Scarborough Agincourt. He has also been an effective voice for the people of Scarborough Agincourt with vast political experience and a proven record of public service. He was the Liberal Party critic for Veterans Affairs and the Liberal Party critic for multiculturalism, with responsibility for stakeholder and community outreach. He served as a parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Human Resources and Skills Development. Prior to this appointment, he served as the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Transport, with special emphasis on transport and the environment. During his tenure, Mr. Karygiannis forged good working relationships with his colleagues at the municipal, provincial, and federal levels of government. Together, they worked on issues of critical importance to the community, including establishing, with law enforcement agencies and various government departments, a task force to combat marijuana grow houses. He also worked with his colleagues to help strengthen community safety and help to ensure the safety of residents of rooming houses in Scarborough Agincourt. Jim Karygiannis is a resident of Ward 22, Scarborough Agincourt, one of the most ethnically diverse neighborhoods in the city of Toronto. He has worked with and will continue to work with the Canadian diasporas of many multicultural communities with respect to the protection of human rights, economic sustainability for nation building, and social justice issues. He has also worked with the Canadian diasporas and the Government of Canada to help secure humanitarian aid to assist the victims of natural and man-made disasters. He has been appointed the City of Toronto's Newcomers Advocate. Jim was born in Athens, Greece in 1955. He immigrated to Canada with his family in 1966 and graduated in 1978 from the University of Toronto with a Bachelor of Applied Science in Industrial Engineering. He also holds a Fellowship of Business Administration from the Canadian School of Management. Jim worked in the family business until 1988 when he was elected as a Member of Parliament. And so it is with my great pleasure that I would love to welcome back Mr. Jim Karygiannis.
Thank you, Neil.
My pleasure.
Thank you. There's a couple of questions that you want me to answer you, and I'm not sure if I've covered them. Maybe I did, maybe.
I think you may have definitely touched on them, but I would love to ask them again if you don't mind. In the context of Canadian democracy, how can we revitalize our political culture and institutions?
Number one, there's a lot of different members of parliament from different backgrounds that are getting elected. I remember back in the 80s when I was running, people would say to me, what's the last name like Karygiannis? But it takes a community about 20 years after they arrive in Canada that they get politically active. Now we probably have the most ethnically diverse parliament there is. That's in the province. However, we still got to do a lot more work in the city. In order to get somebody to get elected, somebody has to win the local nomination. And if you win the local nomination, you become the candidate, then you go forward and you run. Now, how can you revitalize our political culture? I think our political culture needs infusion, and that infusion in Canada especially comes from the different cultural communities that arrive in Canada and their aspiration of the Canadian political dream. And that's where a lot of it is right now is derived from. You go to nominations, I don't know if any of you have been to nominations, but usually when you go to nominations, you've got different ethnicities that bring out the people in order to vote for them. Political culture, it comes with a party, it comes with a leader, and it doesn't matter which politician it is. Usually after a while, either people will get sick and tired of you, or they'll get sick and tired of your party, and they will kick you out. And then we talk about revitalization. We talk about new dreams, aspirations. And that has happened from time to time and time again. Nothing new. Every 10 years, the party changes. I mean, look at, Brian, since 68 until 79, we had the Liberals. They got out. Then Trudeau came again between 80 to 84. Then 84 to 93, you had Brian Mulroney, the Conservatives. 93 to 2006, you had the Liberals. 2006 to 2015, you had the Conservatives, and again the Liberals. Now, when Trudeau was running, aspiration, young guy, the father, and everything else, and they got him going. So, political culture and the institutions, unless we respect individuals and we certainly have the rule of law and the democracy that exists, and give everybody not the benefit of the day, but give everybody the opportunity to participate. That's very important, very, very important, and that's where we move forward as a Canadian democracy. Although democracy was invented in my home state of where I was born in Athens, Greece, I would say to you that's best practice here in Canada. Wow. And again, with some of the faults.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for that. Really. Appreciate that insight, and I really enjoy hearing what you have to say. You're like an encyclopedia when it comes to dates.
Been around too long. I can write a book, my wife says.
Well, that's awesome that you have that all in your head. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for that, because I feel like I'm learning a lot today. And it's a lot of important information. So this is a great eye opener for a lot of our viewers here. Be sure to take notes. Now, I have another question for you as well. Sure. What elements of our democratic infrastructure should we maintain, improve, or abandon?
I finished my sentence by saying that democracy is best practice here in Canada. I've been a political individual for 35 years. Wow. 32 years as an elected representative, 36 years, 3 or 4 years before that involved in the party, involved in all kinds of political committees, writing associations, and everything else. One of the things that we need to make sure we have given the leaders of the political parties in Canada too much control of their party.
Hmm.
If somebody wants to run to be a candidate, he or she must go through what's called the Green Line Committee. I'm talking about the Liberals here. And that Green Line Committee pretty well says, okay, let me see if we like you. Yeah, they try to keep out people that have problems and people that they will not be well representative of the party. But they also sometimes keep out people that they have the ability to go out, get votes, and have the ability to bring into the party new individuals and new ideas. And when you look at the party, we talk about in Canada, the difficulties that we had right now since George Floyd. We talked about having racial discrimination and all that stuff. When you look at any parties and when you look at the upper atmosphere, when you look at the ministers and when you look at the people that are making the decisions, you will realize that also needs changing. It has changed slightly, but it needs more. And what usually the prime minister or the leader of the party will do, he or she will try to select individuals that they will be catering to his wishes or her wishes and will not open the field for other candidates. So that has to change. One of the political cultures that has to change is we should roll back the clock where people winning a nomination were able to run. If back in 1988, when I ran for the nomination, we had the control that they have right now, I would not have been allowed to run because I didn't meet the party leadership, if you want to call it makeup, cut. So that's one of the things that we need to improve. And we need to also, these are political party inside stuff. If the party doesn't like you, they will do whatever they can in order to, they will move heaven and earth in order to have you run. And they have their targeted and they have their preferred people. And I can go down the list of giving you examples of people that they try to block. And that's what needs to change. But improvement after people get elected, you got to have openness. And I don't think that if there's another country in the world that you have more openness. You had the prime minister the other day going to discuss the we situation. No other prime minister has done it before. Not that I'm supporting the prime minister or not. I used to be a liberal. I left the Liberal Party. I'm not politically involved or have a political opinion of anything. But those are the things that we need to change. I think the party structure, the openness of the party, not only welcoming members, but the ability of those members to move up and to become involved in different other things, that also has to change. I remember watching the news and this person was saying that he was the only visible staffer in meetings, and that's where he left. So, it wasn't until lately that there was more ethnic minorities that were able to get to the decision-making table. But again, that still needs to change. When you look at the city of Toronto, you don't see a lot of diversity there. You see a lot of Caucasians. You see one African face. When you look at other municipalities, again, so that has to change. Definitely has to change. So, we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Folks, I hate to do this, but I do have to be somewhere at 6 o'clock. So I hope with your permission and your indulgence, you will allow me to say thank you to Sunil, although he's gone blank, and to Neil and Nadia, but I might have to sign off. Again, I apologize and truly thank you for having me in your panel.
Thank you so much. Not at all. We really appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you, folks.
And thank you so much.
God bless. Nicole, see you at events. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you, folks. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard from Mr. Jim Karygiannis himself. That was some great insight and really letting us in on some information that we may not have had otherwise without his expertise. So thank you again for being here with us. And we are going to move on to our third and final panelist for this discussion. I would like to welcome Gaya Nagendra. Gaya is a community service worker in the region of Peel. She has been in the field of social work for the past 16 years. She is currently the Director of Programs and Community Engagement for Rotary Club of Mississauga, Malton. Also, Gaya is the founding member and executive director of Peel Tamil Services Providers Network Information Helpline. Her life took a turn in 2002 when she went to volunteer in her native Sri Lanka during the ceasefire period. During this time, she volunteered in a variety of settings, from working with school-age children to young mothers. This was a life-changing experience for her. After returning to Canada, she furthered her post-secondary education in community service work, group facilitation, addictions counseling, and adult education to work with a variety of clients. Besides her professional practice, she engages with a variety of groups in Peel and the GTA to work on issues that affect the greater community at large. She continues to grow both in her professional and her personal life by meeting people from all walks of life that inspire her to do what she does. She hopes to bring issues to the forefront and engage the community to talk about them. Gaya hopes to inspire people to be more active members in the community and environment that surround them. So it's with my great pleasure that I would love to welcome Gaya Nagendra. Oh. Think.
Gaya, oh, her microphone's off.
Unmute.
There you are.
Is.
Okay, sorry. Would you like to start me answering the two questions, or do you want me to do my intro first and then?
Up to you. I just read our viewers your awesome bio here, and it's very very inspiring. And I'd like to get a little bit into that, if you don't mind, just to start. So, how I know it says here that your life took a turn in 2002 when you went to volunteer in Sri Lanka during the ceasefire period. How was that experience, and how did it shape you to doing what you're doing now?
Okay, so basically, can I go back in a little bit of time in history?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so my family's been here since the early 70s. So my grandmother came first when Trudeau was Prime Minister, and she was really involved in political life as well in the 70s, and she did a lot of work here, and she helped Sri Lankan refugees that came in on the boat in 1986.
Wow.
And on the coast of Newfoundland, and she was like the first woman president of a group called the Tamil Society of Canada. So from that point on till the early 80s till the 90s, she came and she helped a lot of refugees and stuff like that established in Toronto. As for myself, I'm Tamil, and I lived in Colombo, the capital of Sri Lanka, and in 1983 I was a victim of the anti-Tamil riots in Sri Lanka. So God. I was 5 years old and my house got bombed, and I grew up in that 2-year period. I left my house during the bombing and lived in a jungle for 2 days.
No way.
Right? And then luckily we got safety and we got on a boat to go to Jaffna where there was no war. So I lived in a refugee camp for 2 months during that time. And finally we made it to Jaffna, and after that we came to Canada in 1985 as my uncle sponsored us. So from that period on, I knew what the struggle was of saying democracy and vote, politically parties, because the Tamils didn't have minority rights and everything else there. But luckily, we were protected. I was one of the lucky ones to get out, right?
Wow.
And so from that time on, my parents always felt the need to get involved in community aspect of life, because they wanted us to forget what happened to us when we were children, but also enlighten us of what is really important and how to help people in need because of my grandmother's legacy. So at the age of 13, I started to volunteer in my first election campaign with the Liberal Party of Canada. And that from that point on, I was just doing community work and in 2002, I got a chance to go to Sri Lanka after I graduated university from University of Toronto to help a project that we were doing through the Sri Lankan Students Association in my university to help people in the after the ceasefire. So from that point on, I realized that I'm not cut out to be an accountant or an economist, because I was doing that kind of work, and this is my passion, and I want to help people. So after I came back to Canada, I furthered myself in post-secondary education, and I want to know what is there to do for the next generation. That's why I got involved in community work, and I never looked back. And I'm still doing it to this day, even though it's a professional practice, but I also, in my personal life, I do a lot of emphasis in community work in different aspects as well. I try to help a lot of people as much as I can. And yeah, so what did I wanted to say now that I think, well, I was going to wait till Jim Karygiannis was, it's true, a lot of people don't know who their member of parliament is, or who their councillor is, who their MPP is. And they don't even know like the ministers' names and stuff. That's very important these days to get your voice heard, to be voting every day. Not every day, I mean when the election comes, to know who's there, what kind of work they're doing, what ministry is responsible for what areas of each of the different aspects provincially, federally, and in your city or town you live in, right? So like if you ask an average person, who do you know, who's your counselor, they don't know. That's like I think that we should start from that point on and then go further and learn, that we should learn about the names, the different ministries, what is functions, what a Senate does, what the cabinet minister does, right? And what the governor general does. All that has to come into context as well, right? So I think our people are not educated when it comes to those things, right? So that's very important to learn that as well, because they have to know who they're voting for. And especially this generation, they don't seem to care about these things. But as I'm between, like, I'm 42 years old. I think I'm between two generations of baby boomer and generation Y and X, right? So I'm trying to fit into a different mold or where I can be at this moment in my life, trying to educate the older population, the middle age, and then the younger ones, right? So basically, my point is, it all has to come from you and how you educate yourself and how you want to be involved and why you are voting for the choices you make and what the candidate stands for and what the political party stands for as well. And basically, just to talk about how we can get, I'll answer the questions, how to get the young generation and community involved, and plus new immigrants involved as well. So, and I want to just now backtrack to my questions. So I think the two questions you had asked is, please help us understand civic engagement and the significance in the context
of democracy.
So basically what it means is civic engagement is a way that we are working together to help each other in the community. And it's a motivational way of helping society in different issues to develop the combination of different skills, leadership, and to make a difference. And in the significance of democracy, it is our exercise of freedom to vote for the political party and the issues that we know of and what we will hold in our vote. That's very important to know, and why we're voting for the party or candidate. So it's important to be educated. And we are a democratic country to get these knowledge to be, passed on from one generation to another. So I think it's very important that we get the issues known and what party stands for what, and the names of political leaders and ministry and everything else from A to Z. And it starts with education as well, and trying to work together as a whole community and put things into perspective so people are aware of what is going on. And I think a lot of people are not aware of these issues, and it's like high time that we get to educate people on these issues right now, because times are changing and we don't know where we're going to be in the next 5 to 10 years, right? So it's very important that we have to get people involved at a young age to start the process.
For sure. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I agree, and I realize that I need to learn more names right now because I got schooled on that. You know what? I think what happens is I feel like, for example, when I was in high school, I was really interested in law. I actually was planning initially before music took over to do that. So I did 2 years of political science, and at this time, you know, I was very aware and well informed about how these things work. But over the years, you know, even in high school, we had learned about, okay, what does the governor general do? And since then, it's kind of just, you know, gotten less and less, and I'll know what's immediately around me. So I
Yeah,
know.
basically it's a systematic of having a flow chart, and how you have different departments, the Senate, who's on top, who's at different levels, and it all comes down, right, from one to another.
And I think that's important because I did know, you know, I guess more about that before, but every year that goes by, I remember less and less. And so I think even just having that refresher every now and then is something that will probably keep people more in the loop and just have them feel more aware and able to feel like they're able to make a more informed decision when they do vote. I mean,
Right.
I don't know about others, but I feel pretty confident when I vote, but clearly I could be very off, and I definitely don't know a fraction of what there is to know in the grand scheme of things. But how do you think we can do more, or how have people want to be a part of this? For example, because when you start talking about all these things or having these conversations, maybe for the younger generation, it might be a little bit daunting, right? And you know, the younger generation, they're on their phones. We live in an instant gratification world these days. So the thought that, oh no, I got to learn all this stuff, right? It might get a little bit daunting for them. So what's a way maybe that we can motivate the younger generation to participate in democracy, and not only just go and vote, but really know what is behind that vote they're giving, and knowing things like, okay, this is the MP, this is the MPP, and just being more well informed and more motivated, I guess, positively to participate in these discussions.
Okay, so basically I want to start off by saying that maybe having candidates of younger age in each of members federally, provincially, and municipally. So get the under 30 crowd age gap to run for office or run for different positions, because I think that whole generation will make a difference, and they'll see somebody that looks like them and they'll vote for them, and they're like this. It's almost like the same age category, right? Like 15 to 35, they're all almost the same, right? And plus having, as Mr. Karygiannis said, like having more diversity now in politics should also help too, right? So that getting more people of color to run is also another good asset as well, because we need more representation in our in Canada, and people that look like us that are running. I think the younger generation will have more impact and be positive to say, yes, okay, I want to vote for that person. So whoever is in the political arena right now, I think people should retire at a certain age and then let the young blood run. Like, we want under 40, under 30, under 50 to run, because you know they stay in power for so long, and that's why a lot of people don't vote, you know. But maybe just to get fresh candidates out there to run. And they should make a rule, if you're just going to run for 10 years, and you have to retire from political life. That's what my opinion is. So like, get the 30, 40 people out there to run and that's where we can have more votes and more younger people will vote. And as for the immigration population, I know they don't get their citizenship till 4 years after they come to Canada, but they can still get involved. Like, if you have more awareness in their languages and talk to them in their native language and explain to them this is what voting is, this is what democracy is, this is what you have to do, diversify yourself. You're in Canada now, and this is like a given to you. So I think you should get yourself involved. And plus, and we should also educate them to educate their children, because they're going to be the next generation that's going to be coming up, right? So like that's the whole gist of it. Like if we generate, like, why that we have these issues, it's young people are not getting involved, and then the immigration population is also not getting involved. Those two areas are lacking from my experience, what I've seen. So I wanted to say maybe have more younger candidates go for those positions in parliament, and then make it easier for immigrants to get information on civic engagement and voting and democracy in their languages, so that they can get better at it, and over time they can explain to the children, this is what it is and this is what we're doing, and you have to vote.
That's really well said, is what Nadia says here in the comments. Very well said, Gaya, and I completely agree. I think that's an awesome idea, and definitely from the perspective of younger generations, that's true. If you see someone that you feel represents you, you may be more inclined to participate. And if you don't, that's on you, but at least there are steps being taken to encourage you and to motivate you to be an active member of this democracy. And I think that's an awesome point. So thank you so much for that. Under 30, under 40, that's
even under 50 too, because
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And they should make a rule, like if you're going to be running for MVP or MP, maximum should be 10 years, and that's it, and you should get out, right? Give another person a chance, right?
And also, I think that, I mean, I can't comment on this because clearly I don't know enough about this area, but I think, 10 years, there's two ways to look at it, I guess, where after 10 years, you're very well experienced and you're very knowledgeable on how things work. But on the other hand, an argument can be made that, after 10 years, you can, for all purposes, become a little more complacent because you've been in this environment for such a long time, as opposed to someone who really has, fire in their belly to make change and
so
to do something new.
It's time to pass the torch on to the next generation. That's what my whole point is, right? Like, we don't want the older generation always to take over. That's what I think a lot of youth have issues with, because they think, oh, that person's too old, I don't want to vote for them, so yeah, that's a really good point, and I didn't think of that. And Lynn said here in the comments, I like the idea of intergenerational mentoring, which is a very, very well said as well, Lynn, and that's a great idea, because that way, I mean, that's what's going to really spark an interest in the youth, or I would like to think that would definitely help motivate them to be participating more. And yeah, after 10 years, if we pass the torch, then we have some, fresh young blood can come in, and they're going to be very motivated as well in their own right to make change and reflect and have change that reflects what the younger generation is also thinking as a whole. So that's amazing.
I would like to add to what Gaya said, because I thought she said it very well, mentioning bringing the youth, getting them involved, and also, having, our families educate us as well. And I just want to say, ever since I was a little girl, I was told to vote liberal. My background is Italian, and I would say, well, why do I have to vote liberal? And they would say, because you have to. And this is true. And I'm just saying, like, I'm sure there's other families or other people like me that went through, and it's like, no, you have to vote for this party. But I think what Lynn brought up in the comments is very important, because she said democratic literacy. So actually understanding, like, for the people to vote, to actually understand what they're voting as well. Obviously, listen to family, listen to friends, and, that is very well also. But I do think it's important to have something in place that could educate, even if it's an app, because you said all the youth is on the apps, Neil. So I thought,
you know what? Okay, here, Elections Canada, Elections Ontario. Here's a great idea for you. I only want 15%. basically make an app that's like a game, right? You
Right.
make this app that's like a game, and you have to, it's almost like a quiz, and they press some things on the screen and have to play these mini games.
Right.
And at the end, you find out what percentage of which party you align with. So
Right.
you are this percent liberal, this percent conservative, and you do it through a game. And during this game, you're finding out things about how our political system works. Elections Canada, only 15%.
Well, you know what? I'm taking 5 of that percent. But a friend of mine actually did tell me that there is a lot more educational resources now during the politics, and she was saying that they do let you take a quiz to tell you who you should vote for. So I think that's in line, but maybe trying to make it more interesting, kind of like you said, a game, something a little more fun, and maybe get a reward.
Like something that would that spark their interest, because
Definitely.
honestly, like they get so bored, right? And I have a 12-year-old, and if I wanted to bring her somewhere to one of these events, she would not come, right?
Unless you brought her iPad.
I have to make it interesting and say, look, the Liberal Party is red, Green Party is green, blue, orange. Look at those colors. That's how we learned those parties, because I told her, I literally taught her the 4 parties with the color system, right?
That's so smart, though. Yeah.
She knows now what is NDP, what is BC. She goes blue, yellow, red, orange, green. That's what she knows, right? So I always tell her, like, we belong to the red party because we're liberals, and she goes, oh, okay. So that's basically what I had to say to her just to get the interest, right? So yeah, coming up with different tactics and different things of teaching these kids on how to do the vote process and democracy, and where are we leading today? Because we don't know, like, what's happening right now in the world. Like, I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. Who knows? Like, we might not even be able to go to a polling station, right? So we might have to vote from home, right? So let's see. Like, that's the most, like, right now is like a crucial time to educate these I would say millennials or Generation X and Y. I don't like
both.
I don't know what terminology to use these anymore. Like, yeah, because it's just such mixed generation now, right? Yeah.
Well, educating all of them, I guess, is the main goal.
And even also like the 30 crowd too. They also need to be educated as well, because I think a lot of them are misinformed as well. Like, so they also need to be as well. The 25 to 35 crowd.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for all that insight. Does anybody else have any more questions for Gaya?
Nicole, anything?
If not, I do have one more question.
Lynn have a question.
Sure.
Gaya, how do you think we could make it more accessible and user-friendly to engage the youth?
Okay, so I have a thing. I would say a lot of music. I would tell a lot of music and a lot of
yeah,
rapping,
that's what we do.
right? Yeah.
Dancing, even like a lot of the visual has. I'm sure Neil would agree with me on that one because he's a musician. He would know, right?
Right.
A lot of like colorful presentations. A lot of like, something they would be familiar with, and and advertising is good, and a lot of social media platforms should be a #1 priority. And I think the government should invest into these things in Elections Canada, right? Like more media campaigns and and like make it look cool, right? Like yeah.
Have all the political leaders rap battle each other.
Right.
Step outside the box, right?
A little bit too outside the box, but but I know, but I definitely that was just a joke. But I mean the way to move forward, I would say, is definitely make things. I think with this younger generation, making things more accessible, making things feel more fun, even though it's sometimes work. If you give it it's, if you sugarcoat it a little bit, they
Mhm.
respond so much better to it.
Right.
At least with this younger generation, you know, I would say even up to like 20 years old or so. That's part of what helps them have that initial interest. So if you do make it a little more appealing, you make it a little more relevant to them, or at least they feel like it's something that's more relevant to them, then you're going to get more engagement from those people, where right now they probably do feel a little bit of a disconnect between themselves and the political leaders that they see. The other thing is, I think, and you can let me know if I'm wrong, Gaya, but I feel like we are so blessed to be living in, overall, Canada is such an amazing place, and we do, I'm sure, take so many things for granted. And you know, your story was one that really reflects that, where we're so lucky to be in a place where we know we're going to be safe, where the healthcare system is amazing, in my opinion. Like, even, you know, we went to, actually, I got tested for COVID today because I'm going to be seeing some people, and the process was so well executed. Everything that we have here in this country, I think we're blessed to be here. And because of that, though, I think that especially the younger generation, they take things for granted, because no matter who they vote for, they're going to be living in an amazing country. They're not going to have any consequences to really in their day-to-day lives of voting one way or another. So they feel like, you know, we're going to be okay regardless. Even if I don't vote, my life is not going to drastically change. So why am I going to go vote? So what can you say to people who potentially have that mindset, especially the younger generation who thinks, look, whether I vote or I don't vote, I'm going to be fine either way. So why would I vote?
Well, for me, I think of it as like it's a numbers game, right? So if you want that political party to win, you have to vote for that candidate's seat, right? So each vote counts, and then when they do their final count for the day, they know that leader is going to take the spot, right? So the more votes you get, the more numbers you're in for the party of choice that you want to vote for. And if you don't vote, the numbers will go down and your party will lose, right? So basically, you have to make it balance out to make sure that your candidate, your leader, and your party that you feel has the same values and what you stand for get in, right? So that's my whole point.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all this amazing insight, Gaya. We really appreciate you being here with us. And I would like to thank all of our panelists here being here with us today. We appreciate the time that you took out to educate and inform us on these super important matters, and also share with us some insight on how to involve the younger generation and really make it something that they're more active in as well. So to Nicole Crellin, thank you so much. To Mr. Jim Karygiannis, who's not here with us anymore in the discussion, but was a very important part of it. Thank you so much for being with us, and we really appreciate your time. And of course, Gaya, thank you so much for everything that you shared with us. Thank you for sharing your story with us. That was, you know, very, very brave, and I'm sure something that a lot of people are going to listen to, and it's going to really resonate with them, because a lot of us don't have those kind of experiences. And to meet someone who had that kind of an experience, you were young enough that maybe it's escaped your memory, but old enough that you can still have some memories there. And that is so intense, right? Like for me, I can't even imagine that other than maybe in a movie. And that's something that shaped your reality. And so thank you so much for taking that and using it to actually help others and you know, lift up your community around you. That's amazing.
Thank you for having me today. I would like to participate next year as well. Without virtual, I would like to be on a stage talking.
That's the goal. That's the goal for next year. Yeah.
That's what I mentioned last panel. I said it's so important to hear our panelists live in person and to have other people have this experience, because I've truly been enjoying it. I really feel like, you know, as I was honest, politics, you know, voting democracy was probably not one of my favorite subjects, but being a part of this, it's just so interesting to hear how important it is and really take it in. And you all have such important things to share with us. Nicole, you know, human rights, exercising your human right to vote. I think we take that for granted, like Neil said as well. And that was such a good conversation to have with you all today. Gaia,
Human
you
right,
sharing what?
Human right number 29, responsibility.
That's right. You see, you have a good student today. Remember, it was 29.
That's it.
Got it, Neil.
And then Gaia.
And also,
Well,
yeah.
You know what? Great students are shaped by great teachers. So
Yes.
thank you so much, Nicole. That was
Yes.
awesome. I'm going to remember that, and I have some more memorizing to do as well because I'm going to get tested.
So next,
By Jim. Jim got you good.
I
so
got
Neil,
schooled.
next election, you should remember all the candidates' names, the ministry names.
Oh, forget, you
You
know
know-
what? Next election, you're going to see me knocking on your doors. I'm under 30, so vote for me. No, I'm kidding.
No.
But I think, you know what? This has been such an amazing discussion that we've had here today. And I am really hoping that with this panel discussion taking place on the special Kids and Youth edition of Moksha Canada's Virtual Diversity Festival, I hope that there are some kids watching, some youth watching, and I mean, even people my age watching in their 20s and 30s who are going to look at this and see that it's so important to be aware of this. You might think you're doing your part. You might think I'm going and voting just the way I did. But guess what? There's a lot more that you can do and a lot more that you can learn. And for the kids and the youth, try to be more involved because you guys and girls are going to be the people that are going to be making the decisions in the future. So
Yes.
knowing what it is you're getting into now is going to make you so much more informed and better at making these decisions that are not only going to impact your lives, but are going to impact our lives in the future and everyone's life living in Canada. So to the younger generation, human right number 29, you have a responsibility. So get responsible, kids.
Just want to add something.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to add something. Why don't we guys give some good message to everybody who's watching us today? Everybody say some good message about the democracy, the rights, whatever you want them to do, what they should do, your opinion to them.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. So my message is, well, democracy means representing the people, and you have these people that you vote for and they're representing you. So you know what? You better make sure they represent you well. And that is your right. So take it.
Very well said.
Yeah,
I
you
would
want
like
to say something? Lynn?
Yes. Voting is our freedom in this democratic country. So make sure as soon as you turn age of 18, every 4 years you go out and vote in every election possible, no matter what.
That's the future. We have to make sure what's going on outside.
Right.
And you
It's
know
your
what?
exercise of freedom and you have to exercise it.
Yeah, and you know what? Another important point. I mean, go out and vote. It's super important. And look, I've been going out and voting since I turned 18. But like me, you may not still know who are the people that are representing you. And that's super important. So I am going to go and actively follow up on that and make sure I'm more informed about those things. And I'm just letting everyone know who's watching. I would highly encourage you to do the same thing because it is super important. And if you are ever tested on it, you want to make sure you know.
Are you going to send out the link for Saturday?
Link for Saturday?
It's the recording.
The link of the show. Yeah.
Oh, so what we're going to do is this panel discussion is going to be placed into the Virtual Diversity Festival Day 3. So that would be on August 15th. So this recording will be part of the entire video that'll be posted on YouTube.
Okay, so what is the YouTube channel, please?
So the YouTube channel, if you just type in Moksha Canada Foundation in YouTube, you'll get to the channel.
Okay.
And so this is also important for all our viewers. This is one way to access our virtual diversity festival. So if you go to YouTube, type in Moksha Canada Foundation, you will get to the channel for the Moksha Canada Foundation. Then when you click on the channel, it'll probably be the very first video. It'll be labeled Diversity Festival and the date of that festival. This particular festival is August 15, 2020. And it'll be the most recent video that pops up first, but we'd also say feel free to check out the previous weeks of the Virtual Diversity Festival. Otherwise, you can also go to our Facebook, you can go to our Instagram, Twitter, or even just go to the website at mokshacanada.com, and you can see all our social media profiles there. If you click on the social media profile, we will have links on all of the profiles. That way, no matter what social media platform you prefer to use, you will have easy access to watching the festival.
Before we go, I would like to, or Lim, would you like to add your message before as well?
You know what? I was just going to suggest that you unpack your toolkit and hit the ground running. Democratic ideas.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I was just going to say, on the same note that we had on yesterday's panel, basically just talking about it with the people that you know and getting informed, and at the dinner table, you know, wherever you are with your coworkers, just talk about it and have an openness and a willingness to learn about it. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, once again, this has been Moksha Canada's discussion panel on diversity for day 3 of the Virtual Diversity Festival, the special Kids and Youth Edition. So we encourage parents, if you're watching this, I encourage you to invite your kids to watch this discussion panel too. Invite your teens, and we can all work together to make a more civically engaged and democratically literate Canada. So thank you once again to all our panelists for being here with us today. We truly appreciate you taking your time to share these amazing insights with us. And before we go, I just want to hand it over once again to Nadia to wrap up today's session.
Well, everybody on the panel, your presence was so appreciated. Lynn, Anu, our panelists, and of course, our founder of the foundation, Sunil Channon, for making this possible and for giving a voice to our community and our panelists. Thank you so much for everything you do, because it wouldn't be possible without you or without the Moksha Canada Foundation.
It's a teamwork. We all together in this.
We are. So thank you everybody for watching, and tune in next week for our next diversity show.